All right, it's still sunrise. A recent report by the Africa Development Bank and the Africa Union ranked Nigeria and South Africa as a couple of the nations that make it difficult for prospective African travels to secure entry visas. Here come the good news. Federal government has announced its resolve to introduce a new visa regime to boost the economy and encourage investors. This morning, we have Ambassador Ayola Olukoni, Director General of the Nigeria Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, ASIMA, with us. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Oh, Your Majesty, thank you so much. We also have Mr. Olushola Obasa, Population and Document Security Expert. Thank you so for your time, as well as Ladi Thompson, who is a security expert. Thank you.
The pastor.
And Pastor, I've known him as a reverend, actually, for many years. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Pleasure is ours.
When this news hit, for me, the number one thing was security. For which reason Nigeria closed her borders, said, let's shut this down for a bit. We'll come to the confusion of open entry visas or visa on arrival and the closure of border. But then, do you think this policy was well thought through, given the security challenges that we have?
Oh, okay. Well, I looked at that. I looked at the visa on arrival issue, and what I'm going to say, first of all, is that having listened to the reactions coming from all over the whole place in Nigeria, I always insist that we can't even discuss these issues except we lay the platform of non-violent communication, because there's too much of emotive noise in the air for us to see with clarity. Technically speaking, there's nothing wrong with visa on arrival, because what we have just done is to remove the process of going for visas in the foreign nation that is a lot more laborious, has a lot more, has bottlenecks. And then what we have done is to domicile it into this place. And of course, it's going to result in an increase of people coming into the nation. So on its own, especially since we're in a digital world today, on its own, it's a step in the right direction. However, there are certain things that have to be put into place before January. We only have a few days left to make it successful.
Which is why I asked, do you think we thought it through properly?
Well, I want to believe that government must have understood that before we allow waves of travelers, business investors, waves of tourists to come into Nigeria, we must, first of all, make sure that we look at inclusion and plurality in terms of the politics of Nigeria and the economics of Nigeria, to make sure that people don't come in to meet a divided country. We want to make sure that people come in to meet a country where, I mean, look at the issue of treating gunshot victims and people being allowed to die. They need to come in to meet a Nigeria where the value of human worth through deliberate policies has been elevated to the point where we can resume our position as the giant of Africa. Now, whether these details have been taken care of or not are the issues that we should be granulating.
Okay.
Ambassador, you are the DG of the Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. Were there any consultations between you and government before this was announced? Because I am imagining that majorly those who are going to be coming into Nigeria will be coming for business purposes.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Before my assignment as Director General at NASIMA, I was also in the Nigerian Foreign Service for about 35 years, serving many of our missions abroad. I served 2 terms in New York at the UN. I was 4 years in Tel Aviv in Israel, 4 years in Nairobi, Kenya. I was also Vienna before appointment as ambassador and high commissioner to Australia. and then with concurrent accreditation to New Zealand, Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and Vanuatu. So I have a fair idea in terms of the whole question of the visa regime. It's been a long one, coming a long way. It's been involved for a long period. Don't forget the ECOWAS free movement. It's a reflection of the question of abolition of visas.
Yeah.
Apart from that also as well, the African Union, it's one of the focus as far as free movement, across Africa, among Africans. And against the background of what the African Union itself adopted, some countries have introduced it. Rwanda has introduced it, and Kenya has introduced it. And I'll give you a good example as far as Kenya is concerned. I served in Kenya for 4 years, half of it as acting high commissioner. Then, in those days, Nigerians were not even allowed to come in without visas. If you're transiting on the KQ311 or coming to Lagos, they will not even let you. You sleep at the airport. So we fought it in those days as a mission.
Cheek.
And then eventually we got an arrangement for Nigerians to leave their passports at the airport. They take them to the hotel, usually the Panari Hotel, which is not too far from Jomo Kenyatta, and then they come back. Fast forward to recent times. All you have to do now is take your passport as a Nigerian, hop on board the aircraft, and then you get your visa at the point of entry. So that is this is a reflection of what exactly is happening across Africa. Now, specifically, let me also remind us that there's a visa on arrival policy, even before this new one for Africans. All you need to do is go online, click on the visa on arrival, and then you get your visa on arrival. Of course, there are conditions about it in terms of what it's done. But now, that we're now moving forward, this is for Africans generally, and also targeted at business people. You asked the question, consultations. In a way, the consultations have been going on amongst the business organization, among the MBOs and members of the organized private sector, because we do have regular, in those days, quarterly presidential briefing in the villa. And the issues of visa facilitating is one of the things which we had in those places. Lastly, we just recently had a national forum on the AFCTA, the African Free Trade Confederation area. Here, with UNECA, MAN, as well as some private organizations, the key issues of ease of doing business and facilitating entry of investors was one of those things. And one of the recommendations of them was that government should look at it. It looks like after those discussions, the news now came. It's like maybe perhaps they were listening to us at the National Forum itself on the FCTA, because I think it's a reflection of the trend as far as Africa is concerned. And I think in one way or the other, it's a positive development.
Okay. Mr. Massa, some people are saying that it's a good policy, step in the right direction, but the timing is wrong. At a time when we are facing security issues on a massive scale, why allow people to just come in? Because I'm not certain that we will be able to interrogate people enough at the airport to understand really what their purpose is coming into Nigeria. And Nigeria is a place where you can come in and just disappear, because we have no way of tracking people. I mean, I overstayed my visa in Germany by a few hours, and in no time at all there were policemen knocking at the door where I was staying. Your visa expired last night. Why are you still here? We don't have those kinds of systems in this country.
Yeah, thank you. I think the problem is lack of understanding of what the government is saying. The government is not saying visa-free. Visa on arrival, they are two different things. You still get your visa. And right now, even like Ambassador said, the policy has been there. And actually, I have applied for my business partners twice to come here on visa on arrival. And what you do that you apply, you apply before time. And you put in all the requirements. And then the immigration checks them and either approves or disapproves it. And when they approve it, they send you a document where you now present that document at the airport that will now tally there's a 2D barcode, and when they click on it, your data will now come, and then they will now give you they will now stamp the visa for you. So what it does is that it removes the bottlenecks.
Okay, what
and
you're
allows
saying
you
is that some back-end work has gone on
Of
before
course.
you arrive.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
All those parameters, all those checking, all those security checks will have gone through, will have been done before you even arrive, before the approval. So what it does is that, for example, now let me give an example. My partners were coming, I can't remember, from a place in Spain, and they were complaining, how will I not travel all the way to Madrid? Because that's the only place I can get a visa. And then I'll now go there, and then I'll go back again. Why can't I just, I said, well, now say, oh, now, don't worry, there's visa on arrival. So it removes a lot of bottlenecks for businessmen and investors, and, well, whatever, for tourists also.
For businessmen and investors, I mean, that's been on, okay?
Yeah.
And I think it's understandable to boost the economy and all of that. But it's the open-ended, all Africans are welcome thing that's giving some people concern.
But don't forget that is, like the ambassador said, that was the goal of the African Union.
Yes.
Now listen to this, and this may shock you. An ambassador will confirm it. Not even visa on arrival, visa free. I'll give you an example of what ambassador said about.
What do you mean by visa free?
No visa.
They don't need visa.
For example, now you
Like
go to,
we used
you
to
can
go
go
to
to
the UK in those days without a visa.
Madam, now you can go to, what of ECOWAS? You can go to Ghana without a visa.
Okay.
Just hop on the plane with your passport and go. And that's the goal of Africa, so that you can travel. I'll give you an example, madam. I was on a flight from Addis Ababa to Kampala, to Entebbe, on Ethiopian airline. And we developed a fault mid-flight. And we had to land an emergency in Nairobi. Now listen to this. I think that was before the time the ambassador said. And we landed, and there were about, I think maybe close to about 100 of us. And we lined up to go to town. They got a hotel for us. The airline got a hotel for us to go, so that we can now fly the next day when they bring a replacement airplane or reply. And everybody was being processed. And when it came to me, with my Nigerian passport, they said, step aside. Everybody, and I was looking, Americans, Sweden, Finnish, Australian, non-Africans were being processed. Yeah. I was the only one that slept at the airport that night. It was very embarrassing.
And you are the African.
Yes, and I'm the African. And you know what made me make it more embarrassing to me was that a friend of mine who was an ambassador, the Djiboutian ambassador in Uganda, was at the airport and he saw me. And he went to the airport manager and said, look, let me take responsibility of this guy. I know him. They refused. Why? Because there is no visa on arrival. We are sorry.
Is it because there is no visa on arrival, or there is a security concern that they had?
No, can I come in? Since I lived and worked in Nairobi for 4 years, then there was the crisis and problem of, quote unquote, the stereotyping of Nigerians, drug peddlers and others like that.
Exactly.
So that was then, because I was on ground. And what we did then was to write very many diplomatic note verbals and others to the Kenyans. And like you said, I also went to Seychelles, and I came back from Seychelles with a Nigerian student who said he wanted to stay overnight. And they refused. But fast forward to what I was now saying. So what we now did was to start a démarche. Public diplomacy. We started writing articles in the newspaper. When Kenya Airways got a brand new 777, we welcomed it. We were very happy with it. And we said there are issues arising in terms of treatment of Nigerians. That this is not right. You're making a lot of money from Nigerians and other, on and on and on and on and on. Then eventually, they now said, they sat back. They said, okay, fine. To prevent what you were talking about. Because usually, when you are at the airport, because it was also the mission to the UN. So I also worked at the UN. When I see phone calls and I see KQ, Alex, I know there's trouble at the airport. You will just hear, hey, Oga, your people at the airport are fighting. Hey, there is crisis at the airport, because Nigerians will not take it from. Yeah. But long story short, we were able to push for it.
Okay.
And eventually the whole question of, and that's why the question, now going to Kenya, and like you said, it also helps in terms of facilitating it.
Pastor Thompson, are you comforted with all this? In terms of the security concerns you?
The truth is this. When we look at the security content, this is not where the problem is because there's a digital footprint for those who are going to be coming in through the airports with this. Let me tell you the truth. For the people that Nigerians are afraid of right now, they don't need visas. There are porous borders all over Nigeria that are not manned. We talked about UAVs a while back and all that, manning our borders. To get into Nigeria, to get into the system here, I don't think coming through the airports is really the problem of the issue. But perception. No, I think where the real issue is on all this, if you ask me, looking at it and strategic thought, is that is Nigeria really ready to take back its role as the leader of Africa? This is what this is going to lead to, because there's going to be an influx of Africans who are going to be coming in here for diverse purposes. If we don't put our house in order before they come, this is what is important. Don't forget, 54 nations of Africa, 10 independent territories, we do less than 4% of global trade. So when you look at this on the table, the African Continental Free Trade agreement that was signed is a step in the right direction if this is what it now really depends on. Value extraction and value creation, or rather wealth extraction and wealth creation. If till tomorrow we haven't gotten it right, because right now we have more of extraction than wealth generation in Nigeria, that influx is going to create a burden to our systems. But if we can get it right, first of all, the revenue that's going to come in for the government is going to be a massive jump. Then two, the policies. You see, our trade policies with the rest of the world, we're playing economic games with loaded dice. Nigeria's annual budget and that of Hartsfield-Jackson, Atlanta, in an airport is roughly always the same. 200 million plus people. We are playing global games that we have not yet understood the concepts of how to create value, generate value. I would have thought that this is the opportunity for Nigeria, for instance, if you ask me, bringing in so many Africans, for us to salvage Africa's economy, with Nigeria leading the way. Taking advantage of blockchain, taking advantage of the fact that there are now more sophisticated financial instruments that can be brought into play, and we can actually use wisdom to make them African, as it were, so that instead of us doing 4% of global trade, once we open our borders, the people who come in will become assets to us, more revenue for Nigeria, and for us to also be able to help them to see what they need to go back and do in the African countries. These are the real issues. But when it comes to security concerns, trust me, the majority of terrorists, and those, especially those from the Maghreb and the ones that they are not coming through with digital prints. Maybe some of them might, but honestly, the digital prints, they don't even need that. They would rather come in through porous borders.
Let's take a walk.
Take a walk.
Exactly.
Chambers of Commerce. Nassima is also watching this event closely. And we're thinking of how we can take advantage of this. And I'll give you a practical example. We were in Brazil for the World Chambers of Commerce. So Nassima signed an agreement with the Mauritius Chambers of Commerce. And we were discussing the question of issues of how can we benefit, how can we work closely with each other. So they were saying that they were going to come to us. So we're looking at how we can use this as a platform, because the question and issues of what role for the private sector. Government said, look, private sector, we're giving you a canvas to work on. You can do more businesses. That's why we always say that, please provide environment. And I think this is perhaps one of the platforms
Do you,
can use.
as a seasoned ambassador, yes, thank you for a seasoned diplomat, do you have any concerns that, maybe government needs to address this concern concerning this new visa regime Do you have any concern, given your experience?
Any of the policies which you put in place, you always do your SWOT analysis. Your strength, your weakness, opportunities, and the threats. Definitely. And I presume this must have been done. And by the way, I had also worked closely with Papandede, the Controller General of Immigration, and even yesterday we were chatting on these issues. And we said that, look, listen, on our part, we will also, as NASIMA, we will also come that, look, as far as this is concerned, because don't forget that, you know, no here is not yet paradise, any part of the world. And so you must be aware.
More importantly, in Nigeria. You permit me to, you know, pause that thought for a bit. We need to take a short break to, as you said the other time, drink some water. We'll be right back.
Mr. President said whatever you reform you are going to do must be transparent, and the transparency is that you remove contact between citizens, applicants, and the service officers. So we make sure it is done without collecting cash. So we are really prepared on it, and I assure you it is not the only reform we are doing. There will be entire visa reform which will be submitted to Nigerians before the end of the year. A lot of reforms which will take care of our economy, which will acquire transparency, which will ensure that it is of great benefit to Africa. This visa is only valid for people who are visiting us in Nigeria, who are coming to do business in Nigeria. It will not be valid for people who want to take residency and take up employment. Anybody who wants to take employment, it will be issued in our embassy after due clearance. So this means that all those fears people have in terms of employment, people come and take over a job, God's willing, it will not be there. But it will be for a period of the person's stay in Nigeria. If you are coming for a conference to spend 7 days, we'll give you the 7 days. If you are coming to visit a family, we'll give you the period for the period you want to visit appropriately. So it will be based on need of the person, but it will not be over a period of 90 days. Remember our e-registration. If you stay for a period of 90 days, you must register. So we must not allow somebody to stay over a period of 90 days. Nigerian citizens who are Nigerian by birth and they had to renounce their citizenship to get citizenship of other countries, because those countries doesn't accept dual citizenship. Let me give you an example nearby, just Germany, or India, or China. You are a Nigerian there, you have settled there, you have established, probably got married, give birth to children, you took the nationality of Germany. You cannot have German nationality and also have Nigerian nationality. This kind of categories of people, we will give them visa on arrival. And when they arrive at our port, we can give them visa to the validity of their stay. Anytime they want, even if they want the validity period of their passport, it can be issued. So they have an option. You can see the revolution coming up to link our citizens who are Nigerians by birth, but they cannot be able to get Nigerian passport because of the nature of their nationality. This is just one of the 70 visa regimes we are going to introduce.
Well, interesting conversation we're having on this new visa regime, and Ambassador was talking the other time, and I'd like you to continue that conversation that you're having with us. But if you don't mind taking it from this angle, well, you have talked about this new visa regime in the light of the nation. But when they come into the nation, they go to various subnationals. Do you think there's an integration of the federal and state apparatus to be able to manage the various relationships that are going to... because right now you're wearing two caps. First as a businessman, but then now that we know your CV as a diplomat, we're going to take you up on that one as well.
Well, first let me first address the question and issues, like I said, as Director General NASIMA. When we get visitors, when they come, part of the thing we're doing now is to also push them across to the respective states through the respective chambers. Okay. Port Harcourt International Trade Fair was recently held, and we were also part of those people who work closely with them to bring in visitors from those places. So when they go to those places, we are in touch with Port Harcourt Chambers of Commerce in terms of monitoring, in terms of those of them who have come. That is as far as we are concerned in NASIMA, because they're also part of our responsibility. And when they come in, they're able to strike good arrangement, good business deals with at the respective states. We're very happy with that. We also we also make sure that we take care in terms of police security perspective. I'm saying that against the background of my own experience, in which an Australian investors came in, and he sent in geologists in terms of the Nigerian mining sector. Somewhere, something along the line, something happened. And we now had to, we now had to get across to the state. I'm speaking now as my period in Australia. And when they arrived, I was not only monitoring the movement, and there was a time they wanted to move from Oshogbo to Ekiti State. And they said it was, I said, please do not go. If it is after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, please do not go. I mean, this is... yes, because I issued the visa, and in terms of responsibility.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have to be realistic. We're not, as far as that is concerned. So that's one of the things which I think... And that's why I think the respective states themselves at the subnational level...
Regional security.
Regional security should key into this initiative. There are immigration headquarters and units across the state. The states themselves must wake up to it that once, maybe as Osun State, or as Ekiti State, or Kogi State, you're inviting investors into your respective places, then you must also take the responsibility in terms of ensuring the safety of these respective foreigners.
Okay, let me just say that there will be 5 categories of visas, namely visa at points of entry, short visit visa, temporary resident visa, employment-based visa, and scarce skills transfer visa. That is the one that bothers me, the final one, the scarce skills transfer visa. Reverend Thompson, do you happen to know what that means?
Well, maybe at best my educated guess would be like the H4, is it H4 in America? What category is that? That they used to bring in people who had IT skills at the time when there was a surge in that sector. Well, that may not be bad, like we said, if certain things are on ground. If we are ready to take advantage of the influx of people and we're ready to create value, it means that there are going to be a lot of businesses starting up in Nigeria that did not exist last year. When all those businesses coming, there's going to be different levels of expertise that will be needed to cater for, the influx of guests. Let's even use a very small example. Remember in the early days when Chinese meals became standard all over the world, there were many countries who would have to bring in, I'm talking about the most basic level right now, not even going to the digital level, who had to bring in people who could cook the Chinese meals so that the economy would at least prosper from having these eateries within your country. So as long as that is well, we need to scrutinize that list, that category.
And articulate
properly,
exactly.
Yes, what the special skills are. However, to piggyback on what he is saying, the big challenge here is one thing to bring people in through the borders, use federal might to bring people in through the borders. It's another thing when we want to guarantee their well-being, their safety, their health. We want
Health,
yes.
Forgive me, I just punctuate you there. Health brings to mind Ebola.
Well,
How do we
handle? No, trust me. If Nigeria was able to handle,
that's just one example.
Incident.
That's just one example. Yes. And with this influx, are we prepared?
That's why I say we are going to have to tighten up. Listen, we are going to have to even increase staff. This should be good news. Should be, if we take care of business properly, not only at the federal level but also at the state levels. You see, coming in, the screenings, if you go to Rwanda, for instance, you see the way they screen people before you come in, even before the Ebola and even after the Ebola. You saw what we did. All these things only even increase our revenue generation streams, because I trust Nigeria is smart enough to take advantage of all this. But the point now is, okay, you've come into the airport, you're going to Ondo State. You've come in, God forbid, but somebody's coming in from Kenya or one of those African countries. You get caught in crossfire. Our culture here is that don't treat gunshot victims without a police report. You see, paying lip service is one thing. Making sure that the value of human worth has the respect that must be accorded to it is no longer a federal issue. We're now going regional and we're going to the states. So we really have a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot to make this good news stay as good news. Are already, if you look at our healthcare system, and I'm sure Mr. Obasa will talk more about all that, is already burdened. So when you bring in a lot more people, we're going to need a lot more doctors. Now, if we have already made plans to exploit these things, this is good news. But if we don't have what it takes to exploit the influx, a system that is burdened already, I mean, let me use a very crude example that everybody will probably relate with. A Face Me, I Face You that has only one bathroom has about 9 tenants. And then you bring in another 18. The commode and the bathroom is going to, you know what I'm saying?
So, Mr. Obasa, he has given you the question. Please respond to it. Because infrastructure-wise, I mean, it's also, I don't know if it's a concern for you.
It's true that we have a lot of challenges.
Sorry, let me just quickly say, it's not that we are trying to look at only the negative sides, you know, but it's just to know that we are thinking that, look, government is there employed to serve the people.
Yeah.
But if the people do not feel that, you know, government has considered these things, it's only fair to raise those issues and interrogate them to find out and be sure that whether or not government has actually, and if government has not, call it to attention.
Yeah. With regards to infrastructure, we have challenges. Like we were talking before we came in that in my lifetime, I've been living in darkness in Nigeria. And it's quite embarrassing when there seems to be no solution, you know, that darkness in, darkness out, and you face these challenges every day. So you have to look for solutions yourself. After saying that, when it comes to government, the government playing its part with regards to what we're saying, I think government thought it through, because I think that the fact that
despite the infrastructural deficits.
The fact that there was the visa on arrival policy, even before now, it's there.
Yes.
Means that they must have seen some challenges arising from that before they now expand it. You know, because right now, what they've done is just to expand. It's not a new thing, like the ambassador said. It's not a new thing. It's just, they're just expanding it. They're just expanding the scope now to every African, which to me is a good step in the right direction, because Nigeria is taking the leadership role in Africa once again. Because, like I said, the goal is to have visa-free, not even visa on arrival. But like what Reverend is saying about those challenges, I think if you are trying to look for solutions before you bring a policy, you make a policy statement, I think you'll never get there. For me, I think any solutions are dynamic. Because when you make a statement, when you make a policy or you bring a solution, you don't know the problems you will face. You are not God. You don't know what will happen tomorrow or next tomorrow. But the thing is that for you to be able to face those problems as they come. I'll give an example, like what the Reverend said about the gunshot thing. I think the government is wiser by half. By now, they should have jettisoned that policy because it's not working. It's rather good because you have armed robbers, you know, who go and then they have that. So they want to be able to catch the armed robbers. But now it's not working because innocent people are caught in the crossfire and they die. So what do? You change your policy because what you put in place is not working. You know,
so that's for policy, but then the infrastructural deficits, you know, what do we do about it? He raised the issue, the infrastructural deficits in terms of health and personnel.
And even other things.
And other things,
you see,
yes.
When you come to infrastructural deficit, I think it's going to be ad infinitum. Because let's take, for example, the United States, the largest economy in the world. They still have infrastructure deficit. They still have it. I was in the United States a few weeks ago, and they still have infrastructure deficit. You can never get rid of those. It's dynamic. As they come, you deal with them. As they come, you deal with them. The problem is that have we been able to deal with those infrastructure deficits as they come? The one that we have not even dealt with them. You know, let's take for roads. You know, the Minister of Works was talking about roads, and I think he came out to apologize that Nigerians should be gentle with him for the roads. And when you look at, for example, now, I wonder why a government will build an express road from Lagos to Ibadan and stop at Ibadan. I never got that. I never understood. And if
Meanwhile, we're building a highway from Lagos to Algiers.
I don't know. So if that means that, I mean, look at it. Even if after they finish Ibadan, at Ibadan, if the government was building 50 kilometers every year, they will have completed.
Okay, let's bring this back to Ambassador now. Let me cite the example of South Africa. There was a little bit of a diplomatic row between South Africa and a few African countries because of course, security challenges.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now, I don't know. I think maybe South Africa is also just coming up with its own visa-free policy for Africans, if at all. If not, they'll probably be thinking about that as well. Now, they had that, and then it caused a huge embarrassment for the government of the day. Now, from what Mr. Reverend Thompson said, if that kind of thing should happen here, and we still have to continue to contend with this infrastructural challenges, and it goes out of hand, you know, and some of these policies that should handshake this new visa regime. Do you think what should government do now?
I think what I should say is that when some of these policies are made, I don't think government or the respective unit as in charge will fold its hands and say, let it just continue automatically. Okay. And I like giving concrete examples. Remember before we had a biometric passport, we used to have passports, which you go to the UK embassy, they stamp your one, said no, you throw it away and go and get another one. I know people who have 3, 4 passports as a diplomat in the missions, and I see it. And people come in, with one passport, they go and put another person's, then we move from that place onto the biometric passports. So you can see some practical step in those areas. I had to contend with some of those things that even after that, I discovered and I know that apparently there's a back end in Abuja that supports the whole biometric processes itself. And we were able to work closely with them in terms of, so that is one of the areas, that's one of the issues I want us to know that with this new regime, it's not that the immigration department will fold it out, but any reducer of us in the private sector, and Nasima in particular, will not let them fold their hands, in terms of where there are problems and where there are issues, in terms of implementation, we quickly bring it to our attention. And that's why we are also asking for regular consultative process with the respective agencies of government. We do it with Standard Organization, we do it with NAFDAC, we do it with Standard Organization of Nigeria, and we will also, of course, do this closely with the Immigration Department to ensure smooth and effective implementation to achieve the purpose of this particular policy.
We need to bring this home now, and then we can take a break and let you guys go. But before then, I'd like to take your final comments on specific, which is, so Africans are coming into Nigeria, coming in with skills. Do you see that as a threat to opportunities for Nigerians in 30 seconds?
Well, let's take a holistic view of the whole thing. This move is going to define the presidency of Muhammad Buhari. His leadership skills are going to be called into play. It gives an opportunity for us to reposition Nigeria as the leaders of Africa again, as long as we tackle this properly. And I believe that Nigeria has all that it takes if we make sure there's inclusion and bring all that we have to bear.
Okay. Mr. Basa, so Nigeria is already 200 million people, and we're bringing a lot more people. And how do you see us managing that? And what should government do so we do not have any population problem worse than what we already have? 30 seconds.
I'm sure, Nigeria has the human capacity. There's no doubt about it. And because, like the ambassador said, he wants to go by proofs. And when you go by proofs, let me give you medical doctor's instance. I was in a hospital in Atlanta. 50% of those were Nigerian doctors, you know, and they are Nigerians. They didn't come from space. So I'm sure we have the capacity in Nigeria to manage any of those challenges.
Okay. Well, I guess it's a very fine place to leave this conversation. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of our conversation this morning. Ambassador Ayola Olukoni, the Director General, Nigeria Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, Nasima. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Lushola Obasa, Population and Document Security. Thank you so much. Reverend Larry Thompson, Security Expert. Thank you so much for your time. So we're back in a moment to take on another issue. Please stay with us.